This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
This week's ChangeMaker is Shannon Longino, a dedicated advocate for affordable housing and community revitalization. Drawing inspiration from her grandmother, and we'll get into that in a minute, Shannon played a pivotal role in transforming the Eastlake community of Atlanta from a struggling public housing area into a thriving mixed-income community, and continues to champion opportunities for underserved neighborhoods through her work as Senior Vice President at Truist Community Capital. Shannon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
It's an honor to have you here. I have a very personal story about why I'm so passionate about affordable housing. And from what I hear, you have one also. So do you mind sharing with us about your early days, your family, and being in Atlanta? I'd love to start there.
I was born and raised in Atlanta. I'm a native. And growing up, I was raised in the Eastlake, which was a public housing community known as Eastlake Meadows. My grandmother was Eva Davis, who was the president of the Community Resident Association for more than 40 plus years. We started out in a community that was, public housing wasn't so desirable. I believe the intent of it was to be desirable in homes, but, over the years, things changed and the dynamics kind of came into play of a community that became not so livable and safe and desirable for the families that, in which it was intended to serve. And so being raised there with my grandmother, she catapulted the revitalization of the Eastlake community because of the living conditions and just some of the things that we were being raised and living in, being forced to live in. Most out of survival, we were trying to come out of, but it quickly turned into some other things, into the paradise and community that people view it as today. But before that, we were just residents there just trying to get basic necessities that families deserve, in livable conditions, just amenities, resources, education, all of that a community needs to thrive. We were lacking in those areas, and that's what catapulted her passion to make some things change. We were being robbed of those things. And she was one that did not want to settle and allow someone to tell us what we deserved when we knew we deserved better.
I'm sure that was difficult. It was a time before people really had embraced amenities for affordable housing communities. How did your grandmother, what did she tell you? Like when she was going through those tough patches, everybody was telling her, no, it can't happen, I'm sure. Do you remember something that she imparted to you as far as wisdom or ways to just keep going?
Well, she raised me from the age of 2 weeks old until I became an adult. So I got to see not only our community transition, but I got to see her transform as not only a mom, grandmother, and leader, because she was my mother. I got to see her grow just because of the circumstances that were forced upon. And so, as human beings, we can either sink or swim when challenges are presented to us. We can either rise to the occasion or we can wallow in pity about the situation. And so, although those were our circumstances, what she taught me on each and every day was to show up, number one, for yourself, understanding that you have the capability to use your power and influence. And she took her platform and just continued to embrace it by also encouraging families to join in with her about this fight, because it was going to be a heavy lift. It was going to be taxing. It was overwhelming at times. I can recall so many times, there's too many to name, but in situations where, seem hopeless and seem dire, to where, you don't see an end, or the sun at the end of the tunnel, or rainbow at the end of the tunnel. She saw that every day and she had to reach for it and find it. My witnessing of that reminds me each and every day to, no matter what is in front of me visibly, there's some sunshine and some glam in every day, and we just have to have the willpower, and just tenacity to reach for it, because we're reminded every day, if only we would put that focus towards it. So I watched her every day. That was a reminder every day, and she's still with me every day in my own work, that I do, because again, it wasn't always popular to do the right thing. That gets lonely as you get closer to pushing accountability. And so, being raised in it, I watched her hold people accountable. She lost friends. She lost, people wanting to be involved sometimes because of the heavy lift, but the respect was there. And I think she just pushed through, because again, she demanded respect for all of us, no matter the economic status, everyone, in class and in color, whatever those challenges are, people deserve respect as human beings, first and foremost, when we wake up every day.
What a pioneer and legacy moment for her. And it really shaped you to where
Yes.
you are now, which is amazing because you have such a vast experience of what you're now doing in affordable housing. I do think about people who haven't had the strong grandma, who haven't had the influence, and they really experience gaps. And that's part of what you're now changing and influencing with your role. Let's talk about that. You're
Yes.
on the board of a local charter school. Give us some thoughts on how you are really transforming the neighborhood, yes, but you're also helping fill those gaps.
Drew Charter School was always a part of our initial work of revitalizing East Lake. The school sat in the community when it was not the desirable community we see today. There was something wrong with that picture. I was being bused to Buckhead every single day, which my grandmother had been a part of the Brown versus Board of Education lawsuit that changed the dynamics of options for families where their children could leave their zip code to go get a better quality of education, because the current homeschool in that zip code was less, subpar and less performing. And so I shouldn't have had to go on a school bus 60 miles one way to get that same education that many neighborhoods with resources walk to every day. And so that was a part of our vision, was how do we bring all of that to where our families have access to that for generations to come? Not only understanding that affordable housing is in the midst, and it is the gem that triggers the revitalization of a neighborhood, but the resources is what supports it and helps the community continue to thrive. And so the school, the healthcare, wraparound services, even retail, banks, all of the needs that helps a family to get from A to B, because we don't know what that family needs. Each family's different. But whatever that family needs, we want to be able to provide those options for them to be able to pick and choose what is best for their family. And we know, sometimes society tends to think that people choose to be born into their circumstances. They think that they choose to be born poor. They choose to be born in whatever, struggles that family is in. And that's so far from the truth. At the end of the day, we don't control anything that we're born into. But what we do have the capacity to do is change those conditions that we were born into. And that was an example of why we did the work, why we started the work, why I continue to do the work, because we still need that community and all communities that affordable housing is located in. We need all of the communities to thrive. And therefore, when I'm having conversations in these rooms, it's very important that I communicate. That is great that we get affordable housing and you give a family keys. But what we can't take for granted or assume, make an assumption of that family, is that they have all of the life skills and all of the services that we take for granted when we are in a middle class home or upper class home. We assume that everyone knows to pay rent on time. Everyone knows to take trash out. Everyone knows to be a good neighbor. We have to offer grace in this work that we do, because at the end of the day, that could be our family members. It could be our grandparents, our nieces, nephews, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles. Because at the end of the day, everybody is not doing well. Everybody is not elevated. The playing field is not even for everybody. And so we have to make sure that whatever that family chooses and aspires to be, that we lay those things out for them to say, well, this can work for me. I don't want that, but this will work. Give them options. And none of the families are looking for handouts, but we just want to be a part of the solution by providing options.
And sometimes there's assumptions that people want to stay in poverty, or that they've made bad choices and they deserve to be there, which is such a societal falsehood, isn't it?
It is a stigma that we have to continue to work from. I remember growing up, public housing was frowned upon. And I remember growing up where people would say, reference East Lake Meadows as Little Vietnam, or that public housing community, or those people. And my grandmother would quickly correct someone when they would say, oh, y'all live in the projects. She said, no, we live in a development. She had to start helping train people. And sometimes it wasn't, a lot of it wasn't malicious in the intent, but you have to educate and train people who sometimes don't know the real history behind everything, but want to know. And if you're willing to have a conversation, not get upset, not yell, not scream, not be angry, but use that platform for a conversation. All of that starts there, about resetting those people's mindset. Press the reset button on how we talk to each other and how we get to those conversations for transitions to happen. And what I'm excited about in our industry, even we call it affordable housing now, but that was even a transition from getting people to not look at it again as a stereotype of those people and that place or that community. No, we should all be in a neighborhood acclimated because, as one, because it is someone's home. And you should not ride past the neighborhood and determine if someone is paying $1,000 or $1. It is a family, regardless. It is a family trying to just cope, trying to maintain, trying to elevate, and trying to thrive within their own right. And so I'm excited, number one, that this is the most we've had as conversations. I'm excited about affordable housing. And some people seem to think that this is new. A lot of people think that this just happened. And that's the furthest from the truth. We've been chasing, I call it an epidemic, as it is. We've been chasing this issue for decades. And so there is resolve, but we have, and it's slow in its resolution, but it's moving. And so we have to do what we can do with our conversations, our powers that be, to help continue to move this work and move the needles, because the demand far outweighs the supply. And so we have to keep at that.
And I think that having a person with your voice and background and perspective, you're the perfect person to be doing this. I mean, really, what you bring to affordable housing and community engagement is almost divine in some regards. We appreciate your grandmother's legacy, who set the foundation for you to do this. But wow, what an impactful role. And let's talk about that. You are the Senior Vice President for Truist.
Yes.
Tell us about your role. And to me, this seems like this position, and you being in that position, seem like such a pioneering moment. Has that been the case? Has Truist always had this position? Tell us what you do. Just give us all the details here.
So let me tell you, God has continued to make spaces and rooms. And I'm always humble and grateful when these opportunities are presented. People, we just think banks are just money people. And they, it's transactional. But what I did learn, and I was enamored by these 6 men who I continue to work with to this day, and who are some of my biggest cheerleaders, and they cheer me on as I do this work inside and outside of the bank, is I was floored by their interest in bringing me on board. And one of the things I said to them is, listen, these are things that I have to have. I am in the community. Is that going to be an issue? I was raised doing the work. But, when I spoke to them about that, they smiled because they had done their homework. I've been with them 9 years, going on 10 now, and they get it, But the other part about it is, Truist does this work every day in our division. I think what I did was I kind of humanized it and made it relatable about the history of Atlanta. One of the things I'm proud of is the history of our city. And we have a lot of people who have raised their families here, and who live here, but may see the new Atlanta. And what I do love about sharing with my Truist family is that I love bringing the old Atlanta to the new Atlanta. And it gives all of us a sense of connection to what the work that we do, which was already rewarding, but it really hits home when you have a face and you look at Shannon or you look at other Atlantans that simplify what their mantra is rising from the ashes. And so, we help families rise from the ashes. I'm an example. Thank God for working with a team who does the work, and then supports what I do, and then it all connects and aligns with the mission of what Truist does every day, and then what I do as well, and what I stand for in my life.
What are some of those Truist initiatives that you are most proud of? I'm thinking something that you were at the ribbon cutting. I've seen pictures of you doing so many things, so it may be hard to pick. But tell us what some of your favorite, most proud moments have been, or projects.
This is a job, it's like, this is a job I am still in love with and can't believe that I get paid to do it. It's not a moment, it's a continual renewal. It's like having a vow renewal. Every day we're renewed in the purpose of why we do what we do, and we're renewed in that family going to receive the benefits of those partnerships that we develop. And so the renewal happens every day. And I really genuinely love these people. So families in East Lakes are being born every day because Truist wants to be a part of that community, connect, do their part, and they show up and allow, me and others who work and do the work I do or the work we do show up in the community. So the ribbon cuttings are only the visible part, but this work behind the scenes, it's hard, but the passion that drives it every day, it's turning to hard work. So I'm just blessed that we get to do hard work. I'm blessed that it aligns with my hard work. And it just makes purpose of living very easy because I go to bed thankful and grateful, even better than when I woke up.
I love that. I appreciate you sharing your perspective on what you do, and I want to get into some of your achievements, but we'll save that for part 2. Also, coming up next time on ChangeMakers, Shannon Longino, a senior vice president at Truist Community Capital, will share some inspiring words on how we can make an impact both inside and outside the housing industry.
Be proud of what you've accomplished. If you're not where you want to be, you still have room to grow. You still have room to go. But the other part about it is getting up with the determination to do something different than you did yesterday. And even if it's small, it's still a victory because we all got to start from somewhere.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.